Jan! Jerry's voice bellowed from the depths of the basement, startling her from her afternoon coffee. Get down here, now! She furrowed her brow, setting her mug in the sink. Had something fallen over? Was there a leak? As she descended the creaking wooden steps, the harsh glare of the single light bulb made her squint. Her husband stood in the far corner, surrounded by half-opened boxes and scattered papers. In his hand, he held a small book with a faded pink cover. "That better not be my diary," she said, forcing a chuckle she didn't really feel. She wasn't too concerned. Her diaries dated back decades. She hadn't opened them for years and had actually forgotten about most of them. Yet something in Jerry's posture made the hair on her arms stand on end. He turned slowly to face her. His expression wasn't just anger. It was disbelief tinged with disgust. "Yeah, Jan," he said in a low voice that made her blood run cold. "Your diary. The same one you apparently used to keep some pretty elaborate records," she swallowed. "Jerry, come on. You know I used to write all sorts of silly nonsense when I was young. It's probably nothing." She reached out her hand, hoping he'd just give it to her. Instead, he gripped it tighter. "I'm not sure it's nothing. Because what I just read..." His nostrils flared. "My God, Jan! You've destroyed me." Her heartbeat quickened, and the pounding of her pulse felt like a drum in her ears. "What do you mean?" He opened the diary, flipping to a page dog-eared with purpose. In a voice shaking with rage, he read, "I wish Jerry would agree to marry me sooner, but I'm so tired of waiting. Jim is so much more fun, and oh, that thing Jim did with his..." Jerry stopped. He exhaled sharply, then turned the page. "Wait, there's more here, and it's not just Jim." Jan's stomach dropped. Oh no. Something told her this was far worse than the old single transgression she had mentally buried. She remembered vaguely scribbling out her fantasies in that diary, some of them real experiences, others exaggerated. She'd been young, insecure, and foolish. But at the time, writing it all down had been a bizarre kind of thrill. "Jerry," she began, forcing a lightness she didn't feel. "This happened so long ago. Why does it even..." "Stop talking," he shouted, the veins in his neck bulging. "I'm not finished." With shaking hands, he rifled through the pages, reading random paragraphs in a barely controlled voice. "I can't stop thinking about the way Greg pinned me against the wall last night, how his fingers felt against my skin. Jerry's away again. And I'm so lonely. Maybe I'll let Greg come over this weekend, too. Oh, wow. I never thought I'd be the type to be with more than one man in a single day. But here I am, first with Eddie in the morning, then meeting up with Matt in the evening. The rush is indescribable. I sometimes wonder if I'm doing the right thing, but I'm not hurting anyone, right? Jerry doesn't need to know. I'm sure once we're married, I'll settle down." Each new excerpt was like a dagger twisting deeper into Jerry's heart. Jan pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. She'd forgotten these diaries contained far more than just the fling with Jim. She'd chronicled a whole series of indiscretions, from stolen kisses to full-blown flings with multiple men. And then there were the explicit fantasies. "Jerry," she whispered, tears pricking her eyes. "That was 30 years ago. None of it matters anymore." He glared at her, then slammed the diary shut. "Matters? You think reading that..." He brandished the book at her, his hand shaking. "Where my own wife brags about hooking up with one guy after another doesn't matter?" She took a step back, fear morphing into a sort of defensive arrogance. She never wanted him to see her at her weakest again. "I'm not that person anymore. I was young and dumb." "Were you?" he snapped. "Because you wrote in here about things you did while we were already engaged." "Oh, come on, Jerry," she scoffed, crossing her arms. "Stop acting like this is some fresh betrayal. It's older than our entire marriage. I haven't seen those men in decades. And I had the right to know what I was marrying into," he roared, his voice echoing off the basement walls. "Instead, I was duped into thinking you were just anxious about me leaving for college. Meanwhile, you were hooking up with guys the moment I turned my back." "It was only a few times," she hissed, but as the words left her lips, she remembered that it was more than a few times. A lot more. Jerry fixed her with a stare that froze her on the spot. "You said a few times? Try reading your own words, Jan. There are pages about you meeting guy after guy, like some out-of-control, self-destructive spree, and the details..." He looked physically ill. "I can't believe this." Jan's face hardened. "Look, it's done. You can't change the past." His laugh was hollow. "Oh, that's your defense? That it doesn't count because it was a long time ago?" She shrugged, mustering a dismissive attitude. Deep down, panic roiled in her gut, but she was determined not to show it. People do stupid things in their 20s. Move on. Jerry opened another box, rummaging through old photos. And you kept these too. I'm starting to wonder if you enjoy remembering every filthy detail. She recognized the box he'd found. Old Polaroids and mementos she should have destroyed years ago. He pulled out a photograph. Jan's heart nearly stopped. Who? Jerry said slowly. Are these men? His eyes flicked between the picture and his wife. The photo showed Jan on a couch, half-dressed in a tight top, leaning into a group of 5 guys. Each one had a cocky grin and an arm slung around her. One of them was flexing an impressive bicep. Another was making a gesture at her backside. But the worst part was Jan's own expression. She looked thrilled. She tried to brush it off. Oh, please, Jerry. That's from some random party, it's nothing. But there was no denying the suggestive nature of the photo. The men had a certain familiar closeness with her, and Jan's hair was rumpled in a way that suggested a wild night. To top it off, in black marker across the bottom was scrawled, "The best night ever." Jerry's eyes glistened with tears he refused to shed. Why did you save this? His voice was hushed, teetering between heartbreak and fury. Why would you hold on to any memory of that kind of violation of our trust? She shrugged again, though it came off as a weak, twitchy gesture. I forgot I even had it. He let the photo fall from his hand like it burned his fingers. Get out! Jerry! He stared her down. I said get out! Jan stormed upstairs, tears in her eyes, but her face twisted into a rebellious scowl. This is so stupid, she muttered to herself. It was insane that after so many good years, Jerry was going to throw it all away because of some ancient history. Why did he have to go snooping around in the basement anyway? Jerry emerged moments later carrying the open diary and a handful of photographs. You're going to your parents, he said flatly. His calmness was more terrifying than the yelling had been. You can't just banish me. I live here too. Not anymore, not until I figure out what to do with all of this. He gestured to the diary. Do you realize how humiliating this is? For 30 years, I've believed in a marriage that might have been a lie from day one. She rolled her eyes. My God, Jerry, if it was a lie, then why did we have such a good life? He trembled, each breath ragged. Was it a good life, though, Jan? Or did you just get bored with cheating and decided I was the safe bet? This is exactly what I'm talking about, she snapped. You're blowing everything out of proportion. So I had a wild streak when I was younger. Big deal. People change. Jerry's lips thinned. Pack your things, or I'll pack them for you. Jan wanted to keep arguing, but one look in his eyes told her he was dead serious. She reluctantly turned and headed to their bedroom. While shoving clothes into a suitcase, she heard him pacing outside the door. Just before she zipped up her bag, she spotted a family photo on the nightstand. Jerry, their daughter, their son, and her. She remembered the day it was taken. They were all laughing, wearing matching sweaters, looking so perfect. She took the photo in her hand, closed her eyes, and whispered, He'll calm down. He has to. Out in the driveway, Jerry stood at the front door with an expression like granite. She hauled her suitcase to the car, head held high. Before she got in, she glared at him. This is ridiculous, she said, and you'll regret it. He swallowed, but didn't respond. As she drove off, she looked in the rearview mirror to see him standing there, the diary clutched in his hand. She hated him in that moment almost as much as she hated herself. Word spreads fast in a small town. By the time Jan reached her parents' house, her phone was blowing up with messages from friends. He's telling everyone at the bar what he read one text from a close friend, Linda. Are you okay? Jan cursed under her breath. So, Jerry wasn't just wounded. He was airing their dirty laundry in public. He's humiliating me. She shoved her phone away. She'd deal with that later. Her parents were both in their 80s, and they adored Jerry like a son. They looked shocked and a little pale as Jan explained, through gritted teeth, that Jerry had found old diaries. She didn't go into specifics, just said that he was overreacting to some affairs I had before we were married. But sweetheart, her mother said, confusion evident, if it was before you were married, why is he so angry? It's complicated, Jan muttered, not wanting to reveal the part about multiple men, or that some of it might have overlapped with the engagement. She also skipped the mention of the explicit photo with 5 men. She could only imagine her father's face if he heard that. Meanwhile, Jerry was on a video call with both their adult children, telling them everything. Everything. Within hours, Jan's daughter was blowing up her phone. How could you do that to Dad? her daughter demanded, voice shaking with anger and confusion. Cheating on him with who knows how many men, that's disgusting! Jan bristled, an indignant flush rising to her cheeks. Watch your tone with me, young lady. Oh, so now you're going to be the stern mother? You can't hide behind mom mode anymore. Not after what you did. Dad showed us those diary pages. He literally scanned them. You wrote about hooking up with 5 men in the same week while you were engaged to him? Jan's hand tightened around her phone. It's out of context. And it was decades ago. Her daughter's breath hissed through the line. You lied to him. You lied to us. God, Mom, I always looked up to you. I can't believe I'm saying this, but right now, I'm disgusted. Then the line went dead. A few days later, Jan tried to salvage the relationship with her kids, especially with her daughter, who was still barely speaking to her. But then the final bombshell dropped. One afternoon, her daughter called in a voice that was eerily calm. Too calm. Mom, she said, I sent off for a DNA test. Jan froze, the memory of those diaries flashing through her mind. She remembered writing about hooking up with multiple men around the same time she and Jerry had gotten engaged. She remembered that timeline being precariously close to the conception of their daughter. But she always told herself it must be Jerry's child. Why else would she never mention it to him? What are you talking about? Jan asked, her throat dry. A simple DNA test. I've been wanting to do it for a while, for genealogical reasons. But you know what else it shows, right? Jan bit her lip. Honey, you're being irrational. Those at-home tests aren't even that accurate. Her daughter's voice hardened. They're accurate enough. Besides, Dad agreed to do it too. We'll see if it matches. Jan closed her eyes. Her world was spinning. All right, she said, barely above a whisper. You go ahead and do that. The wait for results felt like an eternity, and each day was more agonizing than the last. Jan prayed she was just paranoid, that Jerry was indeed the biological father. Because if he wasn't... The results came one afternoon while Jan was still at her parents' house. She felt her phone vibrate, saw her daughter's name, and answered. Mom, came the shaking voice on the other end. It says, I'm not Dad's daughter. Jan's heart shattered. For a moment she couldn't speak. She felt faint. Oh my God, it's true. How could you, Mom? Her daughter's voice was high-pitched, on the verge of hysteria. My entire life is a lie. Dad is not my dad all this time. Did you know? Jan let out a choked sob. I suspected, but I wasn't sure. I thought I might just be overthinking. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. She could hear her daughter crying. Dad's packing up his things. He's moving. I don't even know where. He's telling me he can't stay here in this town anymore. He wants to relocate near his parents in Florida or something. You have to fix this. How am I supposed to fix something like this? Jan cried, feeling dizzy. Your father is... Everything you know about him is real. He loves you. But he's not my biological father. This changes everything. And then the line went dead again. Jan drove back to the house she once shared with Jerry. She felt defiant, humiliated, terrified, the perfect swirl of raw emotions. When she walked in, she found Jerry standing in the living room, his eyes red from anger or tears, or both. You have nerve, he said quietly. Showing up here. She tossed her hair back, a defensive posture. I need my things. His bitter laugh echoed through the emptiness. Yeah, well, you might want to take all your things because I'm moving, officially. She froze. What about us? There is no us, Jan. You lied. You cheated before we got married. You carried on like, I don't even want to say it out loud. And now we learn our daughter isn't even biologically mine? A swirl of conflicting emotions twisted in Jan's stomach. She wanted to push back, to say it was all so long ago that it shouldn't count. But the DNA test had just destroyed the last crumb of Jerry's illusions. Jerry, she managed, swallowing hard. I was young. I didn't know who the father was. I loved you, and I still do. That's why I married you instead of running off with those other guys. Besides, you raised our daughter. That counts for something. His eyes flared with anger. Counts for something? Jesus, Jan, you let me believe she was mine. We read stories every night. I taught her how to ride a bike. I paid her college tuition. And you didn't have the decency to tell me there was even a chance I wasn't her father? She took a step toward him, arms outstretched. I was protecting you. And her. She sees you as her dad. Jerry shook his head. Protecting me, he echoed, bitterness dripping from each syllable. That's rich. Do you realize how messed up that is, Jan? You decided on my behalf that I shouldn't know she might not be mine. Congratulations. You played God with my life. She tried to touch him, but he recoiled. Don't, he said. Don't even try. The only reason you came back here was probably to scrounge for pity or to salvage your reputation. His eyes flicked over her with contempt. Arrogant, selfish, that's what you are. Her anger flared. Oh, I'm arrogant? You're the one telling the whole town about this, humiliating me. Good, he snapped, voice rising. You deserve humiliation for the lies you told, for turning our life into a joke. Jan clenched her fists. Well, guess what, Jerry? You're not exactly a saint here airing our dirty laundry all over town. You think you're so high and mighty? He looked like he might explode, but then he forced himself to exhale. With surprising calm, he said, Leave, now. She hesitated. But, he pointed to the door. Leave, or so help me, I'll call the cops and say you're trespassing. Her mouth twitched. She knew he wasn't bluffing, though she wanted to stay, to keep fighting. She turned on her heel and walked out, slamming the door behind her. As soon as she got in her car, she broke down, sobbing. Why are you crying? She asked herself. You did this. He's right. You did all of it. In a town of only 3,600 people, John's scandal was the talk of every diner, grocery store, and coffee shop. People whispered when she went to pick up groceries for her parents. Some gave her pitying looks. Others gave disapproving glares. She tried to ignore the murmurs. Did you hear about Jan? Turns out her daughter isn't Jerry's. I heard she was hooking up with 5 guys at once back in the day. Supposedly there's a photo, so scandalous. My friend's friend saw it. And on and on. One day she overheard a pair of women in the cereal aisle discussing how Jerry was definitely leaving for Florida and that Jan was getting what she deserved. She couldn't take it anymore. She abandoned her cart and fled. In the parking lot, her phone buzzed. It was her mother, frantic. Jan, get back here. Jerry's on the phone. He wants to talk to you. She rushed home, heart pounding. Was it possible Jerry had calmed down enough to speak rationally? When she walked into her parents' living room, she found Jerry on speaker, the tension in the air thick as storm clouds. Jan's mother hovered by the phone, wringing her hands. Jan? Jerry's voice came through, sounding exhausted. I need a favor. She couldn't believe her ears. A favor? He sighed. Yes, I've had enough. I'm leaving for Florida next week. I need you to sign some papers so we can move forward with, a separation. Her stomach twisted. A separation? Jerry, don't do this. Sign them, he said, ignoring her plea. Or I'll file for divorce without any negotiation and you'll get nothing. Her parents exchanged horrified glances. Jan pressed her palms to her temples, frustration boiling over. So that's how you're going to play it? You'll leave me high and dry after 3 decades of marriage? He gave a short bark of a laugh. Actually, you left me high and dry the moment you decided it was fine to cheat on me all those years ago and lie about it. So sign the papers or I'll do this the hard way. Jan bit back a retort, tears burning at the back of her eyes. Fine, send them over. A few weeks passed with minimal contact between them. Jan retreated deeper into a bitter gloom, ignoring phone calls from nosy acquaintances. She also heard from a reliable source that Jerry had been out with none other than Susie, the ex-wife of Jim, the electrician from her diaries. That rumor made her seethe with jealousy and anger. How dare they? He's doing exactly what I did, she muttered, pacing her bedroom at her parents' house. Only difference is he's flaunting it. He wants me to suffer. In truth, Jerry had every right to see whomever he wanted. But the thought of him getting close to Susie, bonding over the mutual heartbreak caused by Jan and Jim, tore Jan up inside. It felt like a cosmic twist of the knife. Her phone vibrated, a message from an unknown number. You reap what you sow. Susie. Jan stared at the text, her blood boiling. I'm not going to engage, she told herself, even as she felt the urge to hurl her phone against the wall. But she typed out a reply anyway. Leave me alone. You have no business in my marriage. A minute later, the response came. It's not your marriage anymore, sweetie. He deserves better. Jan hissed in fury, but forced herself to stop responding. They can have each other, she thought, though her heart panged with regret. I never realized how quickly everything could crumble. On a cold Sunday morning, Jan decided to return to her house, she still saw it that way, and face Jerry one last time before he officially moved to Florida. She wanted to at least attempt closure, maybe beg him to keep the lines of communication open. She also harbored a tiny flicker of hope that he might realize their bond was stronger than these ancient mistakes. The driveway was half full of moving boxes. Jerry was supervising a friend who was helping him load them into a rental truck. As soon as he spotted Jan's car, his expression hardened. "Why are you here?" he said, walking up to her before she'd even shut her car door. The wind whipped at his hair, revealing deeper lines on his face, lines of stress, heartbreak, maybe hate. She stepped out, ignoring the curious stare of Jerry's friend. "We need to talk, alone." Jerry stiffened, then nodded curtly. Inside. They entered the living room, which looked so bare with all the furniture gone. Cardboard boxes lined the walls. The couch they'd cuddled on for years was already shoved into the moving truck. He crossed his arms. "Say what you need to say." She swallowed. "Jerry, please. I know I messed up, okay? And I'm sorry. But we've had 3 decades, 30 years of marriage. That should count for something. I made stupid, horrible choices when I was younger, but I've been faithful ever since. You know that," he snorted. "Actually, I don't know that, considering how well you hid this side of yourself." She took a step closer, ignoring his derisive tone. "Look, let's be honest. Our daughter might not be your biological child, but you're the only father she's ever known. She loves you, and so do I." A muscle in Jerry's jaw twitched. "Yeah, well, you should have thought about that before lying to me for 3 decades. Jan's voice hitched. "It was a mistake. I'm not the same person I was back then. Don't throw away everything we built." Jerry stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. "You know, a few months ago, I might have listened to you, but after reading those diaries—" "They're old!" she interjected, tears brimming. "Stop acting like I cheated on you yesterday!" He raised his voice. "Doesn't matter if it was 30 years or 30 seconds. You let me believe I was marrying someone pure, loyal, honest. All that time you had this skeleton in your closet, or should I say a horde of skeletons. Greg, Eddie, Matt, and God knows who else. And that photo with the 5 men, I can't unsee that." Her face twisted in shame for a split second, but she quickly hardened. "You're unbelievable. I can't change the past, Jerry." "Exactly," he replied, voice dropping to a near whisper. "And I can't change how I feel." Jan's bravado cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "So that's it? You're leaving me?" He nodded. "We're already divorced in every way that matters. The legal process will catch up soon enough. I have no reason to stay in this house, this town, this state. I'm done." She clasped her hands together. "Please, let's at least talk about therapy. Maybe we can—" "No," he said, finality lacing the single word. "I won't live my life wondering if you've done it again. I can't look at you without picturing them." Jan's shoulders slumped, defeat washing over her. "So, you'd rather run off with Susie or whoever else you've been seeing?" Jerry raised a brow. "At least Susie isn't hiding any diaries full of secrets. But that's irrelevant to you. We're finished, Jan." She felt a flash of rage. "You're a hypocrite if you're hooking up with her. You know that? If you can't forgive me for my past—" He cut her off with a bitter laugh. "My God, you still don't get it. This isn't about me hooking up with anyone. It's about your fundamental betrayal, your arrogance, and the lies that form the foundation of our entire marriage. If you can't see the difference, then there's truly nothing left to say." They stood in silence for a moment, tension crackling like static in the air. Then Jerry's friend poked his head through the front door. "Hey man, sorry to interrupt, but the truck's packed. We should get going soon." Jerry nodded. "Right." Jan stared at him, her eyes pleading, but he turned away, grabbed his coat from the floor, and walked out without another word. Days turned into weeks. Jerry left for Florida. Their daughter moved to Orlando for work. Their son stayed in Atlanta. Jan was alone in her parents' house, the same small bedroom she'd grown up in, but now haunted by regrets and the ghost of what used to be. She spent her nights scrolling through old photos on her phone, pausing on each image of her and Jerry smiling at barbecues, birthdays, anniversaries. She thought about that fateful day in the basement. If only she had destroyed those diaries. If only she had never written them in the first place. But regrets were useless now. Her phone rang sporadically, mostly from old friends wanting the inside scoop on the scandal. She ignored them, she ignored everyone, because no matter how many times she tried to justify or rationalize, the truth was inescapable. She caused this. Once, late at night, she even thought about driving down to Florida unannounced, knocking on Jerry's door and begging him again. But she knew it would only worsen the humiliation. The man she had loved, the one who raised a daughter he thought was his own, was gone, physically, emotionally, everything. She had lost him, and possibly lost herself too. In a fleeting moment of desperation, she texted her daughter, "I'm so sorry, honey. I love you. I hope someday you can forgive me." Let me know how your new apartment is going." No response. She tried her son next, leaving a tearful voicemail. "Please call me back. I know you're hurting, but I'm hurting too. I love you both more than anything." Nothing. The silence was deafening. One chilly evening, Jan's father found her sitting in the dark living room, staring at nothing. He cleared his throat. "Jan," he began softly, "I know this is a difficult time, but maybe you should talk to your kids in person." She nodded, tears pooling. "They won't pick up my calls. I'm a complete pariah now." Her father sighed and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You have to understand why they're upset, especially your daughter. Her sense of identity is shattered." Jan bit her lip. "I know, and it's all my fault. If only I'd told Jerry the truth. Maybe we could have—" She shook her head, too exhausted to finish the thought. Her father looked at her, sorrow etched in every wrinkle of his face. "You might have lost Jerry," he said quietly, "but do what you can to not lose your children. If that means letting them be angry for a while, you let them. If it means apologizing a million times, you do it. Don't let your pride or your resentment get in the way." Jan nodded, burying her face in her hands. "I don't know if they'll ever forgive me." He squeezed her shoulder. "Maybe not, but that doesn't mean you stop trying." Months passed, and Jan found a small part-time job at a boutique in town, mostly to keep herself from going stir-crazy. She lived with her parents, cooking meals for them, cleaning, distracting herself from the emptiness that lurked in her heart. Jerry was gone, somewhere near Tampa, building a new life. The last she heard, he was renting a small house by the water. Rumors swirled that he was still in touch with Susie. Some said they were just friends. Others said they were lovers. Jan tried not to care, but the thought of him moving on so easily gnawed at her soul. Her kids remained distant. The only semblance of contact was the occasional text from her daughter, curt and practical, about paperwork or tax documents. Her son never replied at all. Some nights Jan lay awake, replaying every moment of her past. She thought about that group photo with 5 guys, the time she bragged in her diary about hooking up with men while Jerry was away, the day she discovered she was pregnant but never fully considered the timeline. It was all so easy to dismiss back then, to say, it's the past, and move on. But now she understood that some pasts, no matter how far behind, never truly go away. They linger in boxes and diaries and old photos hidden in a basement, silent landmines waiting to detonate a lifetime later. As she drifted into a restless sleep on the old twin bed in her childhood room, she heard the echo of Jerry's voice. "You built our marriage on lies!" And maybe, she thought bitterly, maybe he was right. But in her dreams, she'd see the way he used to look at her with love and trust, the way they laughed at little inside jokes, the way they took turns driving their daughter to soccer practice. She'd wake with tears on her pillow, the heartbreak fresh each morning. And so life went on, fragmented, lonely, and filled with regrets. She'd forever replay that moment in the basement. Jerry, holding the diary, reading those words she'd once thought nothing of. That moment, more than any other, shattered the illusion of the perfect marriage. And there was no way to rewrite that story.